This is Twit.
For the second year in a row, only 2.2% of venture capital funding went to women-led startups. Here to explain why is Allyson Kapin, founder of Women Who Tech and a co-founder of the Women's Startup Challenge, a contest that aims to solve big problems and fund innovation from women founders. Welcome to the show, Allyson.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for coming. So when you say solving the big problems, you mean things like healthcare and government accountability, environmental sustainability, et cetera, all the big ones. So far, how is the tech world doing in solving those problems?
So frankly, it's a big challenge that the tech world is facing right now. We have some of the biggest problems that are facing not just the United States, but this world: climate change, food insecurity, immigration issues. And the startup world has been so focused on, launching products like Facebook and Uber and all of these kind of like first world problems that the tech world is not really digging into some of the larger issues, and the funding is not also going behind that. So that's what we're really trying to solve with the next Women's Startup Challenge, is funding these women-led startups that are taking on some of these huge issues that are facing the world and getting them funded.
So it's not just women in this challenge, it's women specifically that have a startup that is designed to fix these problems that we just mentioned.
That's right. And it, also stems to education issues, health tech, biotech. So it's not really just focused on like social impact, because we don't want to pigeonhole like that. It's really thinking about, honestly, the largest issues that is affecting everybody on this planet. And it's up to the tech sector to be a part of that solution. Obviously, it's not the solution, but I definitely think that technology is a huge part of helping us develop these solutions for the long term.
So it seems to me like, and I'm sure that you would agree, that a really big challenge right now is not that women aren't creating companies. It's that largely, at least in one facet, VC money is not flowing to those companies. So it's kind of making it a huge challenge, for whatever reason, a big hurdle for women-led companies to kind of offer their voice and their solutions, because the money isn't flowing to them to back it up. I feel like right now, this is a big topic. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are saying that there's an imbalance and that they're putting this out in the press and everything. Lots of VCs are calling this to people's attention. But is there enough action behind the scene? Is that money, like, is there enough actionable attention being spent on putting this money in the hands of women who are creating companies that can make a change, that can offer a different voice?
Jason, that is a terrific question, because you are absolutely right. The startup world, the VCs, the media have all been talking about this issue for quite some time, and especially with the rise of the Me Too movement. We have seen so many commitments from investors saying that they are ready to diversify their portfolio. They want to see that pipeline. And frankly, organizations like Women Who Tech have that pipeline. We have over 2,300 women-led startups that have applied to our Women's Startup Challenges that are solving problems. But in order for a startup to scale, they need funding to do that. And what we're not seeing is the investor world live up to their commitments to do this. And so that's one of the things that we really want to be tackling right now, is to have those investors honor their commitments to diversify their portfolios. And we're one of the few organizations that actually have these incredible women-led startups. Like the problem isn't a pipeline issue. There has been a significant rise in the number of women-led startups. The problem is that the doors are closed to them, and we want to crash them open.
So you said Women's Startup Challenges. This isn't the first year you've done this. Tell us about some of the past year, the focuses, and how things have changed since you started.
So we launched the Women's Startup Challenge in 2015, and we launched it in partnership with Craig Newmark, who is the founder of Craigslist and Craig Newmark Philanthropies. And we intentionally launched it in partnership with him because we need allies at the table advocating for the funding of women-led startups. So we, honestly, since day one, it has been an amazing program that we have been able to fund about 8 different startups through our startup challenges. Each startup challenge, we select 10 finalists from an application pool of between 250 and 350 applicants. And then we have an online jury who comes in, they evaluate all of these startups, and these are investors, they're tech serial entrepreneurs, and they select the top 10 to pitch. We partner with Google, we partner with LinkedIn, we partner with Microsoft, mayors of cities like in Paris and London to co-host the startup challenges with us. And the startups they're phenomenal. Like, we walk out of the startup challenges and investors are coming up to us and they're like, I can't believe these startups aren't funded or aren't funded at the same level as the startups that they're seeing getting funded that are men. So we have the traction. These startups are game changers. Like I said before, they just need funding.
Yeah. You wrote an article for Forbes back on December 31st of last year, The Revolution of Women is Coming. And one of the stats that you point out, you point out the ROI advantage for women-led startups, 35% higher return on investment than all male teams. Can you give some insight into that, some background as far as what does that say about these startups? Why is that number so much larger?
I think that the number is so much larger. And by the way, this isn't also just about women. It's also about people of color.
Right.
Is that when you have diverse perspectives, not just on the team, but on the founding team and leading products, they're looking at products from a different lens than a traditionally white male team is. So when we create products, we're creating it for the masses. And so one of the reasons that I think that they are so much more lucrative in terms of their return on investment is because they have a much more diverse perspective and therefore a much wider market. It's not just catering to white men. It's catering to very, very diverse perspectives that, frankly, people want to see in terms of the products that they're using. So I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing such a strong return on investment. I also think that women in particular, and also people of color who aren't funded as much as white male startups, they are used to operating on extremely leaner resources in order for them to survive. And so I think that they have managed to find ways, frankly, to honestly be more lucrative because they don't want to fail. They want to succeed. And so they hustle a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you're accepting applications now. What are the requirements for people to apply for the challenge?
So the core requirements obviously you have to be a women-led startup, and we define that as having at least one woman founder or co-founder on the team. You can't have raised more than $2.2 million for the startup challenge. We feel once you've raise more than $2.2 million, you're probably well on your way to raising your Series A. And then obviously solving big problems. That's the theme of this Women Startup Challenge. And we're really excited with the applications that we're seeing. And we already have over 150 applications submitted. We just launched the program about a week ago. So we have 3 more weeks to go, and I think we're going to get a ton of applications. We're really excited about it.
So that's a lot of work to go through all those applications and figure out who the winner or the winners are. What are the prizes? What is the prize, or what are the prizes? Does this go to multiples, or are you picking out a single, or what's the end game?
So this Women's Startup Challenge is taking place at Google in New York City. So the 10 finalists will go to Google on May 29th and pitch their startup to some rockstar investors. And then the investors will select the winning startup to receive a $50,000 grant by our nonprofit. It's equity free. And then the next day, we also will have a mentoring day with a series of investors where the startups will meet one-on-one with different investors to talk through their startups. And that's being co-hosted by Techstars. So it's not just about the $50,000 grant. This is about opening up a large network of investors to women-led startups that, frankly, have been shut out.
So I'm sure you get a lot of, what about the men's startup challenge? Because that's probably on Twitter.
Life?
That's life. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Took the words out of my mouth.
And I think you've answered that pretty well with everything you've told us about the challenge and why it's important. The news this morning at CNBC, just a couple hours ago, they posted a story about the Bumble co-founder. Bumble is the dating app which puts women first, and so they have presented the Bumble Biz is the new idea, and it sounds to me it's just like a filter where people can they can just see resumes from women. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think that this is one tool that is needed to, frankly, diversify. Like when we're talking about the tech sector, as we all know, there are huge recruitment issues within the tech sector. And so I think that this is one way to help solve that pipeline issue for HR people in terms of their recruitment. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Do I think that this is only how we should be recruiting? Of course not. But I think it's one piece of the pie that we should be looking at.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. This kind of ties in with one of my kind of overarching questions that I had in kind of preparing for this interview is that there's a lot, like there is a ton of attention being placed on diversity, for rightfully so, in hiring practices and technology all across the board. And thankfully that's happening. There's a lot more awareness. I think the potential problem is that we suddenly hit some sort of point where people are experiencing diversity fatigue, where kind of the effects of all of this attention start to numb away. How, and this might be too broad of a question to answer, but how do women startups, as one example, how do they overcome that diversity fatigue to kind of cut through it and make sure that they're paid the attention they deserve?
I mean, honestly, I think that you just have to keep at it. I hear you, what you're saying, that we've been talking about this for years. And the truth is, I hope that in 10 years, you and I aren't sitting here having the same conversation, because we will have made such significant progress that we don't have to have these conversations anymore. Absolutely. But right now, that's not the reality, frankly. So it's up to people like you and I, and allies are a huge part of helping to solve this problem. We can't do it alone. It's not a women's problem to solve. It's an everyone's problem to solve. And so if we can all get together and solve this, then I think in 10 years, we won't be sitting here having this conversation, because it'll just be a natural part of the recruitment process for HR, that they have plenty of diverse candidates. Same thing with startups, that, all types of startups with people of all different backgrounds are getting funded. And so that's my ultimate goal in doing this.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about how the startup world works, I mean, it's often people are finding people that, that look like them, that know them, to support, and so the more women-led startups, then that's going to be an exponential growth. One hopes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the goal is to see more diverse startups funded, exited, and then that puts more money back into the startup world to fund more diverse startups. So that's the ultimate goal.
Allyson Kapin is the founder of Women Who Tech. They bring together more than 10,000 diverse engineers, entrepreneurs, startup founders, investors, and industry leaders. You can find it at womenwhotech.com. Is that the best place for people to find out more and also apply to the challenge?
Yes, that is the best place to find out more. And we are a network of 65,000.
Oh, 65,000. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
That must have been
a whole lot more.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Best of luck.